would just do something like that, like, uh, boop. So
So now I have a question.
yeah.
As a player, would you prefer to play at this camera angle if you were interacting with a city?
So this city's a mess right now.
It's not
You know,
not based on how it's laid
just
out.
like the angle and
The
the
angle
scope.
from which you're looking at it right here. Assuming no, like assuming that we're trying to get the whole city. That's kind of how you'd be looking at it, right? We can't get any more of the wall than that.
Yeah, that's so we could probably do that.
But then
Um,
you can't.
then you're tiny. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
like really tiny. And also there could be a thing kind of like, okay, so Bravely Default, what they do is if you like leave your character alone, like leaving him idle for like 5 seconds, the camera zooms out. Like so you're like running in town and you're running through this, and then if you leave your character alone, all of a sudden the camera goes and just zooms out and you see everything.
That's cool.
We could implement something like that to where you could pan out and see everything, or maybe even like you're here and you're doing stuff here, but you decide that your player needs to go to the tower or whatever, so you can zoom out and click on the tower or whatever. Um, like so, there will be a like a default interacting with that zone size, which might be like this or closer. And then but the maybe the players can still, like scrub in and out and select nodes that are off the screen.
Does that feel natural when you're playing it? When you're playing Bravely Default, do they?
Yeah.
When you
So
zoom out from it,
yeah, the only reason it's in that game is to give you that like, oh wow, this is a pretty image kind of experience. And it
okay,
kind of also, it kind of serves as a map, but you can't really check things on it. You can't like, you can see like little people moving around, and like when it's nighttime, that like the windows have lights in them, but you can't see that. Oh, the shop's open, or I can't check to see if that one guy's up there. It's just kind of a visual thing solely. So I guess for like what I'm saying is like it would be that, but it would like actually serve a purpose through like in navigation.
okay,
Like if we have a place that's so big that you can't fit everything into, like say most of the game takes place in the downtown like valley area,
right,
but you do want to go up into like the outskirts where the tower is. We can either like have this scene, which is at a some angle, or and then we could have him like we could have the player be able to like jump out and select another section from like the other map, or
yeah.
you could have like this one image where everything is in one huge image, and you could just have the player like zoom out and go like okay, we're gonna go to the western tower, and then whether or not it actually then trans goes into another image, I guess is another question. But
My one issue is my major issue from a design perspective is, let's say we did do it like Bravely Default system, and you. It seems to me that their reason for doing it is that it provides the aesthetic sense that this place is massive, more so than just the thing you're interacting with. It kind of lets the player drink in the environment, but we make it like an interaction thing. Then there are going to be maps that are really large. First thing is we have to signal to players that if they stand still for long enough, they'll be able to interact with the outside map. So that's the
or it could
first thing.
or it could just be a thing that the player knows that they can,
Zoom out and zoom in, but
yeah, they can like
then
hit the
yeah,
trigger and zoom out or something.
hmm. maybe that's maybe that would make it. Huh. Maybe that would afford for some interesting things, but that means we're going to be designing maps on like two zoom levels, certain maps for large cities. Maybe that's fine, but that is going to mean that you're going to be making images at least this large
It's
whenever you're making these maps.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it's a chore. It's a big undertaking, but I mean, it's what I'm doing anyways. Like that's like 8192 is kind of my current default size because I kind of got spoiled with all the pixel space.
Mm-hmm.
So
For something like Valley, I think it makes sense, but let's assume that we're not like in Valley. Like imagine, for instance, that you have to make a giant Gothic town.
like something with all kinds of
Yeah, like towers and castles and
yeah. I mean that sounds like something that would just make me cry at night.
yeah, and you've got to do it, and it's got to be done within the same time frame as this, because players have an expectation that maps that are large will be viewed from two different camera angles, because we're not just going to do it once if we introduce the feature.
Right.
Then all of our towns will have to be made with the consideration that they need to be viewed in that way.
Yeah, it's definitely a scope that I've never done before. So it would be a challenge, and I can't say that it would be a successful challenge
Challenge.
that's for sure.
I don't think it would be like I'm in support of having a large map size with the opportunity to see more detail. I'm just wondering from like a play perspective, how necessary is it for us to involve the player in the whole image? How much play space do we get out of that?
Yeah. I mean, we could also totally just chop this image up into a couple of images, and that way there's, you know, Valley has like multiple like images, but you know, I guess the idea of like being able to zoom out is it's something that the player might expect from everything that's big,
Mm-hmm.
but if there is just a number of um, like sub zones, like you know, like other, like say you have like this downtown area, and then you can then you have an image that's this tower over here, and then you know it's like they don't know, they don't, I guess I wouldn't think that they would expect like, oh well, Valley had 6 different like district images or whatever, so this Gothic town also needs to have 6.
Yeah,
That makes sense, or did I kind of
no,
confuse
that
myself?
makes sense. I think you're right in that the player expectation may not be that every town that is big is going to have so many zones of interaction. I, and I think probably that. I'm trying to compose my thoughts. Our two concerns with Valley, it seems, from an aesthetic perspective, can we communicate the immensity of the place to the player while they're playing the game? The other concern is, can we make the space feel fun to play within? And it seems that those two goals are conflicting with one another. Because the larger the space we try to utilize, the more content we have to put into it. Otherwise, it feels empty. Um,
Sorry, I was muted.
no, that's
um,
fine.
and another thing is it's like how much detail do we put into the things that don't really matter story wise? I mean, do we kind of keep like blocks of buildings as blobs with like, you know, only like things like the palace that's really detailed? I mean, if things can get, you know, if we can imply things with just like a few brushstrokes, that big Gothic town would not be nearly as terrifying, or of nearly as like wouldn't be such a chore.
Um, can I ask you to say that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Um, so like if in Valley there's 6 places that the player will go to that are buildings like like the palace and like a barracks and a tower or whatnot.
Hmm.
Like those 6 things could be fleshed out with as much detail as we want to put into them. Um, all the filler stuff that makes it look like it's a huge city, like all the other like dwellings and buildings and whatnot, um, can have far less detail because they're kind of like background
Right.
detail. If uh, if if we were okay with that, or to it, like not saying that these like smudges here are what I'm talking about, because these are just placeholders. But if we were okay with most of the dwellings and whatnot being not at the same level of detail as the points of interest, then things like huge cities or like the big Gothic um, city or whatnot would not be nearly as daunting or as big of a task.
Well, okay. Here's my concern. My main concern. Um, you have access to the drive right now, right?
I do.
And the Valley Dwelling 002 file.
Let me go to it. Where where's it at exactly? And
It's in the environments folder, I believe.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and which one is it?
It's the Valley Dwelling 002. The one with the big facade in it for the Petros and then all of the smaller structures.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Okay. What I'm seeing right now in uh, when you shared your screen is something that I'm really interested in, like a large scale rendering of this place. And I think it's necessary to have that because we have to communicate the depth to the player. But from what I can see, at least, it's going to be impossible or very difficult to present structures that are as charming and do as interesting a job of communicating the individual style and architecture of Valley's citizens as the structures that you did as concepts in the Valley Dwelling 002 at this scale.
Yeah, it's always been I agree with you. That's always been a concern of mine is the just like the nature of how the dwellings are created. They're kind of created to disappear.
Yeah.
It's going to be extremely hard to um, do that, but also um, let the player see them at such at a distance that we would need to show such a large town.
So, uh, if that's the case, what I would rather have is a concepted image that we can use to introduce the player to the place, which is what you're already working on and have
Mhm.
done a tremendous job with, and a map that's interactable for the player at a different angle, one that shows everything about Valley that we want to show, with the individual structures as they appear in detail, as many of them as we care to add that are important, that look like the ones you've got in Valley at the bottom of the page in Valley 002. The stuff that's made out of rock, the stuff that has little smoke trails flowing from it, rocks wreathed around them. I think
Yeah.
I think that planning out the structure of Valley through the large image would be to our benefit, um, because we can do that for free, basically. Now we have a city development like planner, essentially
Hmm.
map that we
Yeah.
can utilize to figure out the best routes between things, and then we take the blueprint that you've made here with the concept image, and we utilize that to plan the actual interactable town.
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a solution to this problem that I'm on board with.
Okay.
Um, so going back to some of those this concepts from the other games that you've showed me, are you thinking something like this for the close up?
Yeah, well, I think something vertical like that works for Valley specifically. If we consider the foremost buildings to be the ones that are most likely to be interactable,
Hmm.
and have the buildings that go from the first bridge on the left, from that level up, be the ones that are formed out of the wall behind the town itself.
Okay.
You could even have like smaller dwellings that are sort of in the foreground, even lower. But if we build the town up on a level toward the wall, then we'll be able to utilize the same structure they've used to make the town look interesting and have it be interactive.
Yeah. If we so like our idea of the player like following like almost like an like almost like an on rails like node system to where they
Hmm.
like go like boop boop boop,
To the
connect the
individual.
dots.
Yes.
If we were okay with say like one node, like that little path that they take, one of them dead ends at like a darkened tunnel, and once the player goes there, he disappears and
Yes.
like reappears up higher.
Yep.
That'd be that
Oh,
would
that's perfect.
you like that?
Yeah, I really like that idea.
Okay. I think that's a I think it's a good idea. I've had like this concern that like the thing that we're approaching is something that I've wondered if it's going to be a concern, and it's kind of I've brought it up a couple times, but without actually doing it. It's like I didn't know if it was if I was worrying about nothing or whatnot. Um, so I guess the thing is then is like how much detail to put into to this
The
at this
individual.
level.
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is look at the structures that you've got down there and figure out
Yeah, they're kind of
where
just
the points of interest need to go.
yeah. Right now they're just blobs
Hmm.
to represent to like you guys like hey, this town goes here,
Yeah.
um, and in my head I've seen this town actually sprawl out to cover. Let me just paint a big, you know just
Yeah, do it.
to cover this area.
Do it. Make that happen because I would love to see that.
um,
If you don't really need to go into any more detail than what you have there anyway, because when viewers see this as a concepted image, they're going to be seeing it from the thumbnail size, probably
right.
looking in. Um, And if it's true that you're going to have it sprawling out everywhere, then we do have an opportunity to really try and figure out and plan where we're putting things. Maybe what we do is wait for when we know when you're coming back in the 20. Well, first off, we'll just have the image in the Google Drive, and David and I can sort of plan out where he thinks he'd like certain things to go.
Okay.
And then once he knows where he wants things, once we figure out where we're going to settle on the camera, like starting, like at ground level, where in this cluster of buildings looking up toward the wall, then we can figure out where they're going to go, and also um, have a better idea of what sort of verticality we need to add in terms of which structures are going to need to be higher up, which ones should be lower down to make sense of everything.
Sure. Yeah. I wonder. One of the guys that are helping us. Is his name John or Josh?
John. John.
John.
Yep.
Uh, maybe since he has like a tablet, maybe he can I don't know how, I'm not trying to like assign him work necessarily or anything, but maybe he can work with you guys and he can like sketch out your ideas over top of
Yes,
this since he has a tablet. Might
that
be a
would be
little
great. I'll ask him if that's something he's interested in.
cool.
So then what that says to me at least is that since we know kind of what our camera angle is going to be by using that one image as our demo for the angle,
Uh-huh.
I think I think it would be wise then to start work on um, for the stream so that we have them for the stream on these locations. Trying to figure out which of the um, Valley Dwelling 002 fit the bill for what you think a plaza would look like or how you would construct a plaza, having those at least pre-rendered for Frank to start animating and working on animating them so that they can just be placed into the image.
Okay, so this is stuff I'll be doing on Monday.
Stuff you'll be doing on Monday, and possibly if you could have like one structure ready before Monday, that would be great. If not, I completely understand. Um,
Yeah, I'll do my best.
okay,
We're leaving tomorrow morning, but
sure.
I've got tonight.
Okay,
Um, I might be able to get something in. If anything, if you guys are cool with not finished stuff, I
yeah,
can get some like really rough stuff out
yeah.
for sure.
We'll get Frank on working on those, um, and that'll be more than helpful
Cool. What do
enough
you
to.
what would you like? Would you like the plaza stuff?
I'm assuming that's like multiple buildings. It's
Yeah,
the
that's what.
bakery plus the stage plus like. So if yeah, yeah, that would be great. Having a plaza would be great. I think putting the towers that we talked about into this image would be good too. Not that we're gonna have to end up putting them into the town, but just so I can like talk to David about them
Uh-huh.
or about like different representations of how we would do them, or maybe just posting the second image that you have, the untitled one, onto the drive as well,
Yeah.
and then we can like say maybe we do this and then blah 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 blah, or maybe even there'd be a way to have it so that it's close enough to the like you know how on the internet image that we have of the town over the water that we were looking at, there's like a bridge leading in from the left hand side of the screen with a structure attached to it.
Oh, this one?
Yeah. You see the bridge on the left with the structure leading in? There's a possibility that we could even have like the beginnings of the tower showing
Yeah.
uh, in the same way.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good point. We could have it poking out the side.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, Flame Fox. Thanks very much for stopping in and donation, and I can't wait for Monday, buddy.
Yeah, take it easy.
Um, so yeah. Uh, so yeah, the plaza would be great to get us start on. I think that probably like trying to create a conflict between what you think the capital's architecture and what you think Valley's architecture would look like. I
Uh-huh.
think primarily the last ones you did, the ones where stone is used almost completely to create the structure of the buildings, juxtaposed with like this not new looking building, but things with like clear capital. Um, like a capital decorator came in and said, no, we can't have it looking like Valley for the pictures. You
Right.
know, like I think that would be a cool little thing to throw in for the aesthetic of the plaza if you want to play with that. And
Yeah,
then
I think
yeah,
that's I think I
yeah, then that should
that's
be
a good
great.
idea.
Uh, I don't know. Do you what sort of like what ideas do you have about this, or what's still bothering you, or isn't like working slash paying off in the way that you want it to? Is there
If it
anything
is what paying off the way I wanted.
like is there anything here that just like doesn't doesn't read well to you, or isn't uh, are you frustrated with any of the individual elements of the assignment you've been given? Is there any way I
No,
can figure out more to make it easier?
I think the only thing that's frustrating is, and it's like a good frustration. It's just a really challenging assignment. Um, the the only thing that's been frustrating, I think, in the like, oh, I don't know if I have the power to do that, is just the inherent bizarre concept that is Valley.
Yeah.
As our first town. Um, like this is like a boss
Yeah, it's
level
a
thing.
final boss.
It's like I totally like. There's a part of me that kind of hates David just a little bit for not giving me a little like Highlander like straw roof village
Little
to do
tiny town.
first.
Yeah.
but but I like his idea enough that it didn't complain too much.
Good. Good.
It's a challenge, but uh, ultimately, if we can all agree, we all like get the same page. I know that I'm sometimes like he's got an idea, and it's like as much as he reminds me that it's one way, it's like I never seem to actually get all the way there. So it's like a little bit of like, okay, so this is the only way this is as far as we're gonna get to interpreting that to what I actually wanted. But um, I think we're at least with like you, David and I, we're kind of finally getting into like a middle ground where we're all agreeing on the way this looks. At least that's what I hope.
Yeah, no, I think that's the magic of game design is like one person fucks it up in a way that makes it better. And
Yeah, putting that on my resume.
and that's like the whole process of game design is you had this beautiful glorious idea that didn't want to change and then it did and now it's like holy shit, I'm glad that changed. I was an idiot.
Yeah.
Um, and I think uh, the really cool thing about all of the concepting work that's being done on Valley is we've seen it from the very beginning of how we thought it would look
Hmm.
to what it's become now, and I think it's all been positive progress. The immensity, the scale of the the place is something I couldn't even imagined until you put it not on paper literally, but on paper in
Man, yeah,
front of.
it's been some places. Like
Yeah.
it's gone through some iterations for sure.
Um, so I don't know. I think that also maybe one of the positives of having to do a final boss first is that all of the trash mobs feel easier afterward. It's like the
Yeah.
Dark Souls